We're going to continue fact-checking Trump on his legal strategy with CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig and Jason Barron, former attorney and senior counsel at the Justice Department during the George H.W. Bush and Clinton administrations. He's also the former director of litigation for the National Archives and Records Administration. Elie, another thing we heard the president say last night, another claim, is that he could face up to 400 years in prison. I guess that's theoretically possible, but do you think that that's at all really on the table?
No, not at all, Jake. Nobody's getting 400 years in this case, or 40 years, or anything close to it. The way he gets that number is if you take the maximum allowable sentences for all 37 charges in this case and you add them up, it does come out to 400. However, nobody's getting the maximum in a case like this. You have to look at the federal sentencing guidelines, which are influential. They're advisory. The judge has to consider them, but they're not binding. And if you run that calculation, this case comes out pretty high to about 8 to 12 years. Now, the judge can go above that, which seems unlikely to me. Judge can go below that. But Jake, this seems to me to be, no matter what, even if the judge goes below that 8 to 12 year range, it's hard for me to see a judge going down to probation, to no sentence. So this seems to me, if there's a conviction, like it's very likely to be a prison sentence of some sort, maybe not 8 to 10 or 12 years, definitely not 400 years.
Yeah, at least that's a claim that's grounded in some sort of foundation of reality, though. I mean, that is, if you add up all the sentencing. Jason, another claim we heard from Trump last night is that he is allowed to take these documents under the Presidential Records Act. Take a listen.
Very simply, the Presidential Records Act, which is not even mentioned in this ridiculous 44-page indictment, under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, I had every right to have these documents.
So, Jason, you're an expert on the Presidential Records Act. You worked at the National Archives. Is what he's saying true? And why isn't the Presidential Records Act mentioned in the indictment?
Well, the president is simply wrong. The records that were taken to Mar-a-Lago's are the American people's records. The Presidential Records Act was passed by Congress to change prior practice where presidents had their records as personal and they could take them home. But ever since Ronald Reagan, presidents have been governed under the PRA. And the Presidential Records Act says that when Joe Biden was inaugurated, when he swore to office, those records were in the legal custody of the National Archives. President Trump had no right to take a single document to Mar-a-Lago, whether it's classified or unclassified. And he's conflating the indictment with respect to the Espionage Act. He's separately charged under that act for taking information related to the national security. Some portion of the documents were classified. That may be a crime. The Presidential Records Act was violated because he took any document outside the legal custody of the National Archives, and he should have returned them when the NARA staff asked for them.
Elie, Trump's Bedminster Club is mentioned several times in the indictment as a place that where Trump showed classified documents to others. Do you think it's possible we might see additional charges brought by the special counsel in New Jersey, because all the charges from yesterday's arrest and arraignment took place, had to do with things that took place in Florida?
Yeah, Jake, I've seen this hypothesis out there. I think it's interesting. I think it's a smart concept, but I do see a couple possible difficulties with it. One, it's not actually clear from the indictment that there were actual classified documents at Bedminster. There's two incidents referred to in the indictment where Trump sort of alludes to or refers to or suggests that he has some classified information. But let's remember, the indictment does not actually refer to any documents recovered, and our reporting is that DOJ was not able to recover any documents that match up. So we don't know if DOJ has that or not, but if they don't, we're not going to see additional charges. The other thing is, when prosecutors have a related set of charges, you're not supposed to charge them seriatim. You're not supposed to sort of charge one, then wait, then maybe hold back the other for strategic advantage. So I think if they had New Jersey charges based on those Bedminster incidents, they would have charged them all together.
Jason, Trump's lawyers have been making the argument that Trump, in their view, has the absolute right to designate his records as personal. Is there any legal support for that claim?
No, that's just not the law of the D.C. Circuit. In fact, they keep citing a case that involved President Clinton's interview with a historian and deciding that those interviews were personal, and he took them as his personal records. That's completely different than taking classified records out of the White House or any records that are in the official business of the White House. And so personal records are like diaries and journals and other records that are not circulated, not used for government business. Everything that we know of that he took with him seem to be official records and classified records. And so that's just not what he should do. The case law actually says the opposite. The cases that are cited here, there is DC Circuit precedent that says we did not hold that the president could designate any material he wishes as presidential records and thereby exercise virtually complete control over it. So these claims are just absolutely not what the law is.
Jason Barron, you sound a little frustrated, and I have to say welcome to my world. Appreciate it to you and to Elie Honig. Thanks so much.